All right, so today, class, for our lesson, I would like to talk a little bit about a certain type of career in the design field. Before I do, I just wanted to um, give you a background on different routes into the digital art field if this is something that interests you. If you decide to go into this field, you could be number one, a corporate employee, meaning that you work for a company, one specific company, and you do work just for that company. You might get asked to create brochures, you might get asked to create products, you might be asked to create signs, you might be asked to do the web design for that company. If you're a corporate employee, um, the benefits, this might benefit you in some ways. You might um, work a 9 to 5 job, so you might go into work, leave work, you get a steady paycheck, you get health benefits, and you work Monday through Friday, right? So that would be more of the corporate route to design. But then there's another route called freelance. All right, so you could be a freelance designer as well. And a freelance designer is someone who works for themselves, they are their own boss. And so you would make up your own hours, you would get your own work. So you're not working for one company and just doing work for them. You're being able to select the type of jobs that come through. So you might do work for multiple companies at one time. Um, and you might like this type of job better. Uh, some of the struggles of a freelance designer would be, you are your own boss, so you have to advertise and self promote your work through social media or other ways. You have to seek jobs yourself. Um, you have to be in charge of money coming in and coming out. There might be times through managing money. So if you were going to go down this route, business would be very important. A business background would be very important as well. And you would really want to uh, be able to manage your money well, because there might be times throughout the year where you don't get work, and there are times when you do. So those are the two different types of career routes that you can take as a designer, any type of design field that you go into. What I wanted to look at with you is art licensing. All right. So this falls under freelance. Okay. So this is a type of field that a lot of artists go into, or designers. And basically, and I'm going to explain to you, it's a way that designers can work for themselves, and they almost like rent their work to companies. Here's the thing, and I can't really point at it, but if you look at through pictures on this screen right now, you can see the one on the left. It's just a pattern, right? So it's important as an artist or designer to not only create your art or your designs, like that design on the left, but to also show how it can be used, right, on a product, because that's really where we see designs, right? So if you look at the picture, the pictures that follow through that one pattern, this artist is saying, hey, look at this really great pattern I created. You could place this on a bag, you could place this on a dress, you could place this on a notebook, right? So that it's showing someone, oh wow, there are a lot of things that you can do with this pattern, this very pretty pattern. The reason you want to do this as an artist, because you send your work to um, not only like art directors, but um, manufacturers and people who are in the business field. Their background is not in art. It's your job to create the art for them. So if someone with a business background is just looking at that design on the left, they're going to be like, well, that's pretty, but what can I do with this? Right? So you have to show them how you can use your work. Um, and that's very important in freelance and in art licensing, which I'm going to talk to you a little bit about. So, what is art licensing? I got this online. I thought it was great. So, expert Tara Reid puts it: you rent your artwork to companies to put on their products, or another word would be like you lease your artwork, right? I'm sure you've all heard of um, leasing a car, right? You don't own that car. You're only leasing it for a certain amount of years, then you have to return it, right? So this is how artists and designers can make money freelancing. An artist who chooses to license their art may not sell any originals at all, but simply license the images for use on commercial products. So what she's trying to say here is that you are making more money off of your artwork by renting it or leasing it, just like you would lease a car to someone, because then they're giving it back to you. And you could lease it to someone else or rent it to someone else, right? As opposed to just selling your work outright. If you sell your work outright to someone, you they now own it. You no longer own that product or that artwork. There's a tremendous potential in the world of art licensing, but it requires a different way of approaching business than more traditional avenues of selling art. Here's an example again of like the picture that I showed you in the beginning where, you have artwork, but now here are these designers saying, hey, look at my artwork. Look at how it can be used. You could look on the bottom right picture, you could put the little lion on a picture frame, but you could also put it on a baby onesie or a plate or a book. What I wanted to show you was, and I'm going to just flip through my screen here. My friend Teresa Fleming is a licensed artist. That's her website. And let me just show you her page real quick. So it's also important as a designer or an artist to create a professional looking website for yourself, right? So this is Teresa's website, right? So Teresa Fleming, her homepage, her art licensing, she creates stationery, graphic design, etc. So a little bit about her. She was actually in Italy with me when going back to our old pictures that we were, our old project that we were working on. Mine was on Italy. She's done a lot of graphic design work, so you can scroll through all of the graphic design work that she's done. She's done stationery. Okay, so you can kind of scroll through. So you can see that she's created the stationery and she put it on products. And she also does art licensing. All right, so Teresa freelances for Target. Okay, just to kind of give you an example. So when you walk into Target, she does a lot of really great children's type of illustration and graphics. So when you walk into any of those aisles, those bedding aisles, let's say you walked into the children's aisle and there was a section where they had bedding for bedspreads and pillows and pictures that match. That's the type of stuff that she does. But she licenses it. She's an art licensor, so she works with companies like this to lease or rent her work. Right? And I'm going to explain to you what the benefits are to this, as opposed to selling this outright to Target. But you can see that these are patterns that she creates, and this is how you would see it. Examples of how you would use it, right? So you can definitely go to her site and check it out. What I want to do right now is go back to my slideshow here. So there's a licensor and a licensee. The licensor is us, or if we were using my friend Teresa as an example, the licensor would be her. She's the creative image maker, the holder of the property. The licensee, or them, is the client, the company, the product, the manufacturer, the entertainer, the provider. That person that you license your work to. Okay. So I'm going to go through and explain a little bit. So, you want to first create a brand identity for yourself. So, you want to identify what you're creating. So, for example, my friend Teresa, she identifies herself as well, she does multiple work, but let's just look at her art licensing. She does a lot of children's type of graphics. So that's her brand identity. That's how people see her or identify with her. And sometimes, sorry for my typo, but it's not only about how talented you are, but it's about how you market yourself. So your business comes into play. It's very important to have a business background if you're going into any type of art. Um, so, if you are drawing these or digitally creating these beautiful designs, but you don't know how to market yourself, you're marketing to the wrong clientele and you're not going to sell anything, you're not going to make money off of it. So you really need to know how to market yourself as an artist. You may need an agent to help you, okay? So what's an agent? Agent is almost like a middleman too, someone that helps find jobs for you. Think about like musicians and actors and actresses. They have agents, or even like football players have agents who help get contracts for them. They're not going to work for you for free. You have to give them a percentage, but you may not ever get work unless you have an agent. So a lot of artists will pick up agents to work with because they will help get them work. So let's say Teresa has an agent, right? The agent helps her get a job at Target. They start negotiating and creating contracts for how long they're going to rent or lease her work, how much money she's going to make off of it, and so forth. And then based on how much she makes, she will receive royalty checks from that manufacturer. So just like musicians, right? They receive royalty checks for all of their albums being sold, or illustrators and authors for books that they write. They receive checks for every book that's been bought and sold. Okay. This is really the last thing I wanted to just go over with you, and I'm sure there's a way, I just don't know how to point this out. But if you look at option A, okay, let's say that this, first off, this picture on the left, okay, is Teresa's work, okay. So let's say that Teresa, she made this work, she put the work on products to say, hey, this is how you can use this penguin. You could put him on a bag, you could put him on a tag, you could put him on wrapping paper, right? So she's not getting work. Let's say she's like, you know what? I'm going to get an agent, right? My top left picture. She gets an agent. The agent helps her get a job with Target, right? She's not going to do option A. I mean, option A, you sell your images outright, meaning like this little penguin here. You say you negotiate with Target, and you and the agent negotiate, and you say, I'm going to sell this to you outright for $500, right? $500 might sound like, wow, that's a decent amount of money just for this little penguin. I mean, that's great. I would love $500. But now selling it outright means that Target owns that penguin. I mean, you no longer own it. You can no longer use it for anything, right? You no longer have that copyright. Where you might want to go with option B, where you rent or lease your artwork to someone. So let's say if we just looked at the picture of the box wrapped in wrapping paper. Let's say at Target, one roll of wrapping paper was $5 a roll, right? Hypothetically speaking, let's say, this is my little math here, she sells 10 rolls in one store, right? She sells 10 rolls in one store, she makes $50. Awesome. She just made $50 on 10 rolls for doing pretty much nothing, right? All she did was create one penguin That penguin got printed on wrapping paper. She did not have to have any part of that. But now she's making money off of that wrapping paper. And she made $50 in one store. But you know that there's thousands of Targets across the country, right? But let's say that she sold 10 rolls across 100 stores. She's now making $5,000 just on that wrapping paper for doing nothing but making one little penguin, right? So now look at your profit. If you sold it outright, you would have made $500. And if you went down the art licensing route, now she's making $5,000 just off that one penguin, right? And that doesn't even include the bag and the tags and everything else that goes along with it. Now, when you're art licensing too, you want to think that you have to give a percentage back to who you're working with, right? So Target gets 10%. Let's say, well, I don't know this is how it works, but let's say they made a contract. They made up a contract and their deal was that for every roll of wrapping paper, they would get 10%. So now Target, for doing nothing, right? But taking in Teresa and, printing the wrapping paper, which we're not including how the cost of print is, but Target would make $500 off of her work, and then her agent also for helping her would, let's say they get 10%, they would make $500. So hypothetically speaking, now she's making, if you were to deduct that 1,000, she realistically would make $4,000 from those 100 stores on this wrapping paper for doing nothing but making that penguin, which I'm sure took time, but I'm sure it didn't take $4,000 worth of time. But that's how artists begin to make money in a smart way. And that's what we call the royalty check. So every so many months, I'm assuming, she probably receives, or every year receives, a royalty check from certain manufacturers that she works with for selling certain products. And that's how art licensing works. So for our next project, I would like us to do something similar. I would like us to create and I'm going to get more into this tomorrow's class period. I'm going to make another video and show you examples and where I'd like you to go with this, but I want you just to get an idea today of what art licensing is. But we're going to create a design. The design could be done in Adobe Photoshop. It can be done in Adobe Illustrator. It can be hand-drawn. It could be painted. It's your choice of medium or material that you would like to use, because I know that not all of you have access to the Adobe software. And what we're going to do is we're going to place it on a product as if we were freelance designers, similar to this. This is an example that someone did last year. So they created this design in Adobe Illustrator, okay, and then they placed it on a product, okay, and I'm going to show you and explain to you how to go through this process, how to start off with like what type of designs that you can and can't do, what you can and can't use, and then how to get that get that design onto a product. All right, but for today's class, what I really want you to do is just make sure you finish that worksheet. Make sure you attach the questions, whether they're through, you share it with me or through the comments area on the assignment. And then in tomorrow's class period, I'll start going over how to start the process of creating your design and requirements. All right, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. I am going to try to start a Google Hangout or a Zoom time during the week with this class if you have any specific questions about the project, if that makes it easier. All right, hope you had a nice break, and I will see you tomorrow.